Welcome to Unequal Opinions. Today we have a very interesting topic and a very near and dear topic to, I think, all of our hearts. A guy who is probably my favorite artist of all, not artist of all time, favorite rapper of all time, maybe.
Really?
Or at least top 3, top 5 in there somewhere.
Really?
That's kind of surprises me.
Yeah.
But okay. All right.
Not mine.
I think
Yeah,
he was dancing around the words because I feel the same way. It's like, I'm not going to say he's my favorite rapper of all time. He don't get that. Could he be my favorite artist of all time? No. But is he my favorite artist in maybe the last 20, 30 years? Yeah.
Nope, not for me.
Yeah. And with that, I will say not my favorite spokesperson of all time.
Yeah.
Not my favorite PR person of all time.
Not my favorite person, period. Not in my top.
Yeah.
It's a person at all. No, he's on that logo.
But I can separate the two.
Like,
Because
I almost felt like Questlove on this. Like, it's like, oh, we didn't cancel dude yet?
But like, because of his musical impact on me, like, and I think really the industry, I think you'd have to put Kanye in top 10s as far as like this generation and last generation, top 5s, things like that. But what we're here to talk about today is what are Kanye West's top 5 albums. And with that, I will start.
Are we counting down or counting up?
I say we can like 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2.
I'm really interested because there's like I feel like we should have the same 1 and 2.
I bet you we don't.
But I got a good feeling.
I feel like we should have the same 1 and 2. I agree with you, K-Dot.
I bet you we don't.
But I bet you we don't either.
All right,
it's like
y'all
might have the same shit, but I
thought the bigger debate was probably gonna be like who made the cut as far as the top 5. But the more all right, fuck it. Yeah, let's count down for 5. All right, you started off.
Everybody has a reason, right?
I just want to introduce a little caveat. We all really did research for this, guys. Like we went back and listened and like, okay, like is this like really his best album or is this his worst album, so on and so forth. And I want to give this caveat as well. We're only doing solo albums. Watch the Throne doesn't count. Cruel Summer doesn't count. Just Kanye solo albums, not Kids See Ghosts.
None of them should have made your top 5. And if you are, turn the pot off now because you're just wrong.
And now we're going to see the YouTube dip.
A bunch of other Gen Zers. Man, what Kids See Ghosts, it spoke to me. It spoke to my generation, man.
Now, starting from 5, I'll go to 1. And then you guys, we can all discuss this. All right. So 5 for me, College Dropout.
Okay.
4 for me, 808s and Heartbreak. 3 for me, Late Registration. 2, Graduation. 1, which is easily, not easily, I won't say easily, his best album, Yeezus. No, I'm just kidding.
Nigga.
I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be funny.
I was about to throw my laptop and the pod. You thought you were hosting shit? Not tonight.
It's like, hey, we're taking this pod away from King.
No, I mean, no. It's not Yeezus. It's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I think it's his best album. I do think it is easily his best, but if you tell me Graduation, I wouldn't fight you on it. But those are my 5.
Wow. Okay. Am I next? Yep. All right, so we're just doing the 5 and then we discuss after.
Yeah.
That's the deal. Okay. Me and your list are eerily similar. We've got one major difference, and that's my number 5 on the top 5 Kanye West albums of all time. Life of Pablo.
I knew you were going to go there.
I know. Number 4, 808s and Heartbreak. Number 3, Late Registration. Number 2, Graduation. Number 1, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which is his magnum opus. It is the creme de la creme. It's an artist reaching his full potential. And I think anything he does going forward, while it will be different because Kanye is known for reinventing himself quite a bit, that to me is his crowning achievement. And for me, it'll always be not necessarily comparison to that, but if he'll ever get to that same level of mastery.
I completely agree. And I was gonna save this for the discussion, but I'll say it just based off of what you just said. I feel like it's the best version of all of his albums. It's there's like some portion of each album that he kind of pulled from, and it's like, oh, like it's just perfect for me.
Yeah, I got a lot of takes on it. I expected I had to defend myself, but all right, I guess James, you're up next.
Yep. All right. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to say my thing, and then I'm going to give my points as to why it's where it is. Okay. So first off, fuck you guys before we even start.
It's about to be a trash list.
Not really. All right. So number 5 is Life of Pablo.
Okay.
I put him at 5. Like it's on the list just because Max B is on the album. So I was like, and Chance's verse on Ultralight Beam. And then it solidified itself when you saw the rant that Kanye had at Chance. I met Kanye West, I'm never gonna fail. And then you see Kanye West saying, shut the fuck up or leave. That shit was funny. All right. Number 4, Late Registration. All right. So I had this one at number 4. I loved it because Bernie's on the album. Like hearing Bernie, like that made me smile again. And then the best part, I was gonna move this up like to number 3, but fuck it, is because Game is on the album and he's on a song and he did not do like not one name drop. There was no name drops.
I'm noticing all your rankings has a lot more to do with the artist featured than it does with Kanye. Okay, all right. Just noticing a trend.
Wait till you hear number 3. Oh boy. Number 3 is College Dropout. Now, I was gonna move it higher, but I couldn't just because of the workout plan song. And I feel like that song created Brittany Renner.
That's yo, we got to put that on socials.
That song created her, bro. She followed that fucking plan to a T.
It was a hell of a very, very detailed plan. I'm not gonna lie.
And it worked. Look,
I can't stand that fucking song now.
Yeah, exactly. So when I heard it, I was like, her. She, like, I pictured her saying all the words. All right. And then also, since Talib Kweli is on the album too, like, I thought about it and I was like, I don't feel like listening to it. All right. Number 2, Graduation. To me, that was like a nostalgia pick. I was a freshman in college in 2007 when this came out. And like, it doesn't have a skip for me. I just remember listening to it. And I was like, this is great.
Are you about to put 808's number 1?
Number 1's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. It had an absurd amount of hits on the album, but the part that stood out the most to me was the time leading up to the album. Good Fridays. That was a fucking moment.
That was fucking a moment.
Yeah. And then it's like you hear all these fucking bangers, and then you got this album at the end. And it's like, oh shit, did you hear Nicki's verse? Did you hear like all these other songs? Like, so yeah, that was my list.
I thought you were gonna come out of left field, James, with some picks. Not a bad.
It's not a bad list.
I've been holding on to that Brittany Renner comment for like a week.
Good. I'm glad you did. Did. That was worth it. That was totally worth it. Thank you, sir.
All right. Okay. With that said, let's kind of discuss this. Let's go from 5 to 1. But before we do that, I would like for us to kind of get in some of the maybe like closer ones to 5 that you didn't put at 5 that you were like, maybe, or for whatever reason, just to give like a little justification for it. And I'll start. So for me, that probably like 4 through 7, I want to say for Kanye, it's kind of debatable.
Yeah.
And if you told me I'll say 5 through 7, not 4 through 7. 5 through 7, it's a little bit closer. And my 5 through 7 was, I had College Dropout was 5, 6 for me was TLOP, and 7 was Yeezus. And so if you switch those in any way, I'm not really gonna go debate you too toughly on that because I think there's room for error in there. My thing with TLOP is in the middle. It's trash to me. No, okay, I won't say trash. TLOP is one of Kanye's best sounding albums. The lyrics, I think, are pretty bad just as far as Kanye goes himself. His guests killed it. You know, like he has a couple guest verses where it's like, oh, this is golden. Like, I love this. Like the Chance, like like the Chance verse and everything. Like, I love that. But the reason why it's not there for me is the lyrics kind of from Kanye just kind of suck. Like his whole, like the part 2, there's some, I'm just like, yo, like even on, which song is it? And he's talking about like Bleach.
The Bleach asshole it takes it down a notch. I'm not gonna deny that.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm like, fam, like, and this is a good sounding song. Like a few of his lyrics kind of reduce the songs for me for that album. And so like that's why it's 6 instead of 5. And then first like Yeezus actually aged a little bit better than it sounds a little bit better now than it did when it dropped. But it's 10 songs, and I think 5 out of 10 are great.
See, my cusp. So I went Life of Pablo 5, and College Dropout was the one that didn't make the cut. College Dropout to me was I think looking back, here's the thing: we're debating Kanye West albums. They're not bad. So like we're debating greatness, right? I do think. Well, I'll bring that up in just a second. Life of Pablo to me makes the cut because I think we're still digesting this album. I don't think this album has kind of reached its full extent because of how much Kanye's been through in the last few years. I think looking back on some of the songs and seeing where his head's at and kind of nobody knowing where his head's at as far as what medications he's on, what the fuck he's doing, like it's sort of me almost a good reason why I kind of appreciated the fact that Life of Pablo, when he did the first release, wasn't finished and he was still tinkering with it. Because I think Life of Pablo is probably his biggest work of art that's still, I think, evolving in some sort of way. Like, I just don't feel as though I think as time goes on, people are going to look at that Life of Pablo album and start listening to certain songs. I think we're going to understand him as an artist a little bit more, especially in this new era. I'm really curious to see what the Donda album's like, because I think it's going to be, I think that while he has all the Yeezus stuff and everything, I think that with him leaving Kim from a personal standpoint, when adhering to his lyricism, we might get more into his head just a little bit more than we have been over the group project and the Jesus is King shit. I actively dislike Yeezus. Yeezus would be behind Watch the Throne and fucking everything for me. And the reason that Yeezus to me sucks so bad is that for me it was the first time that he wasn't innovative. Like the shit in Yeezus sounded so different than stuff that Kanye was doing, but that industrial minimalist sound was not new. Like you had producers stuff like LP.
Look at the cover. What did you expect?
But you had producers and stuff like LP that've been doing and getting in that lane for years. Like it was, anytime I was listening to Kanye it was like, what new is he bringing to me? And there's like this evolvement as an artist, or him not trying to do the same things. It felt when Yeezus dropped out, while it was new for people to hear Kanye doing it, the shit that I was hearing production-wise was stuff that I thought was like 2 or 3 years old. It just never felt innovative to me compared to everything else that he's done, where you can either look at a song or two and be like, all right, legit. I think Black Skinhead's a pretty good song. But I think overall, from looking at lyrics and just the production, it just doesn't feel like a Kanye banger to me at all. And it just, to me, it hasn't aged as well as any of the other albums have. College Dropout just missed the cusp for me, just because I don't want to compare it to Space Jam, but I kind of mentioned this in my final thought on ASOS a couple episodes, where people misplaced nostalgia for quality. I think for a lot of people in our age bracket, going to school, or if you're a bit older and going to college, and you heard what he was kind of talking about in that era, when Kanye first popped up, he was this new wave of something that was so much different than everything that was on the radio, and I think we kind of held on to that. But if I'm looking at where he grew as an artist, I could never say his first album was the best, or even like close to the best, because I think he was always evolving. And I think that if we're looking at it, there are some albums that were like that. I look at Kanye as almost there was 2 versions of Kanye. And I think if we're looking at version 1 Kanye, while College Dropout was like, wow, this dude is capable of a lot, we never saw any of the, all right, this guy's arrived at this point.
Like
I think you touched on a few of
All
my
Falls Down, Jesus
point.
Walks.
They were bangers, dude. Bangers.
No,
I'm not taking away. They're not bad at all.
On. I'm with K-Dot on this because there's not a lot. There's 21 songs. There's about 4 or 5 songs that are filler on that album.
Well, I mean, there's skits.
And there's skits.
Like there's skits.
And the skits kind of work as far as skits go on an album, but I don't want, like, that's not, to me, it was Kanye just dipping his toe in the water. This is my Prove It album. I can prove that I'm here. But how many artists, but here's the thing, how many artists do we know that have had as long a career that we can ever really say that their first project was that good? Other than, the first project was the best project they did. Other than Nas, which is like lightning in a bottle.
I would have said The Game a while ago, but the last album was.
Game has 2 or 3 great albums, but the thing is that to me, if I'm looking at like Nas, he's got 3 greats, but Illmatic is on a level than which I don't think you'll ever get to, and I don't think Kanye peaked like that.
Oh,
he was doing his producing.
I kind of disagree on the Nas thing. I don't think Illmatic is his best album. I think it's his most revered. It was written Stillmatic guy. But that's just me. And as far as like Game goes, Game is one of those guys who like really doesn't have a bad album, but the problem with Game is all of his antics. It's all of his antics that kind of detract from the caliber. Like, fam, I still played it. Documentary is one of my favorite albums ever. Period.
It's a great album.
I still play it probably once every month. I'll play it once a month. I just love that album. It's a great album, but we don't have to get into Game or not.
One Game thing I do want to say.
Boom Baye.
300 Bars and Run is the most underrated beef song ever made. I don't want to hear anybody say any, like, it might be my favorite. It's between that and No Vaseline to me is my favorite beef songs of all time. 300 Bars and Running.
No Vaseline today.
300 Bars and Running is incredible. And I remember, like, that was when internet forums were like fairly new. I remember being on a couple of them centered around like hip hop and everything. Everybody know BGOL from way back with you. That was like when they were like, dog, you know, he's got like a 16-minute freestyle. Like, shit's dope. And he stood over every fucking West Coast beat. He went over the East Side. Just fucking. I'm sorry. I know every lyric to 300 Bars and Running.
I was a teenager when it dropped, and I remember it. I loved it because I've always been offered going at people and shit, so it was right up my alley. And like that's a classic. So I don't disagree with you there. So what were you gonna say, James?
I don't remember, but I can go to mine.
What was your on your cusp?
808.
Yeah, I was wondering why 808 didn't make your list.
Well, look at it this way. There was a lot of hype, like when the album was about to drop, as with all Kanye songs, right? I mean, albums. But when it did come out, I don't think people liked it at all, right? And it like grew on people, like some people as it went, but it just never grew on me. Like if I look back at some of the songs, I'm like, like there might be one that I'm like, yeah, I'll listen to it.
What's your one?
Let me find it.
Because I wanted to
go Barry Bonds.
I mean, all right. So then, like, Heartless was cool, but I'm not gonna play it in the car.
Heartless is a good song.
Amazing was great at the time, but it's like, all right, I hear the Jeezy hook and I'm done. Like, cool. Love Lockdown, I never really cared for. Paranoids, RoboCop, I hated that shit. Like, I hated RoboCop.
Okay, all right. I'm ready to talk about 808s as soon as you're done.
Streetlights. Like streetlights, like when I see streetlights, I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's not flashing lights. Like, fuck, it's not all the lights either. I'm like, man,
low light.
It's not ultralight beam.
It's the worst of all the lights. Like, so I'm like,
no, low lights is the worst.
I don't even know that one. So,
are you a fan? Are you guys a fan of "See You in My Nightmares"?
I am.
I am too, and I'm kind of ashamed, but I am a huge fan of See You in My Nightmares. I don't even remember that song.
That's how
many times I went back I see he's featured, but that's how many times I went back to the album because I'm like,
Look,
this came out in 2008.
So
this came out in 2008. So this is like the peak time for all of us in college, and it's like you have all these other acts that came out at that time, and at that point in time, to me, Ye flopped with this compared to what came out around it. So I was listening to all the other shit more than this.
So that to me is where your take on 808s and Heartbreak is where I diverge, and he makes number 4. 808s and Heartbreak is not my favorite Kanye album. If we were going off of what my favorites were, it doesn't make my. It doesn't. I thought it was the best.
I mean, best your favorites, like to me.
I don't think that to me I could separate. So like to me, if I'm going off of favorites, 808's not my top 5, Kanye. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, if we were going favorites, I would have asked you, hey, can we put on some of the collabo stuff? Because it would have even some of at least one of those collabo projects might have gotten higher than that one. 808s to me is an album in which we're talking about influence. There is hard to say there's been more influential albums than that album. Because we're looking at when it came out, what 08, he's getting into his emo rap game. Drake owes his entire career to 808s and Heartbreak. And I'm not being...
3 came out in 2008.
Huh?
The Carter 3 came out in 2008.
I'm not disagreeing with the Carter 3. I'm not saying...
But I'm just saying the albums that came out, they're just like...
But here's the thing. Kanye was all... But regardless... I'm still with you on that. I was listening to Carter 3 more than I was ever listening to 808s and Heartbreak when it first came out. Other than seeing you on my nightmares, because the sound system I had in my fucking Oldsmobile used to that. Oh God! But the 808s thing, Drake's career, The Weeknd, Kid Cudi, it was like black new wave. Like you're talking about the 80s, in the 80s when you had a lot of like the synth stuff happening. This was a resurgence of something totally different. And the thing is, I think at the time when it got released, we had no idea what to do with it because nobody was doing anything like that. Like it was one thing to be a thug.
Don't know what to do with it.
It's a one thing to be.
Play it.
All right, you might not, but guess who did? Like I said, Drake, Kid Cudi, The Weeknd, all these emo rap guys that start talking about their emotions on a song. 808s is where it starts. And even if you're talking about from a production standpoint with 808s and Heartbreak, you look at RoboCop. Go talk to any of the youngins that are younger than us, and you ask them what their favorite Kanye West song. I'd say a good 50 to 60% are going to tell you RoboCop.
Hey, hold on. Kanye didn't even have the best rap album from Chicago that year.
It's not, but that's the thing. It's not about that as much as
Lupe
it's about
came
what
out that year.
But Lupe's back. All right, Lupe is.
What Lupe album came out that year?
The Cool.
No, that's 06, ain't it?
Nah.
I feel like The Cool was earlier, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
thought
looking
that
at
was 06.
top rap albums from 2008. The Cool is on the list.
Fine, regardless of what it is, I'm not saying.
LAX.
But my point is that with this album, is that it's not to look at what happened when it first got released.
You might be right because this is weird. They got Graduation on here too.
Yeah, I don't know what that list is.
Yeah, that's a wrong list because I know when The Cool came out because that's one of my favorite albums as well.
Yeah, cool, I was like, I fuck with that song.
Food and Liquor 06, The Cool 07. I was close.
But what I still what I say still stands as far as what the influence of 808s is. So if you're talking about a greatest list, 808s, as far as if we were just going on, if we said top 5 most influential Kanye albums, this should be higher.
Come on, if we're saying December 2007, come on, like December 18th.
2007.
December 18th. That's 2008.
This doesn't matter. It doesn't. Right, it literally doesn't matter. Like if we get your point. The idea that there were albums that we were listening to more than 808s and Heartbreak in 08. Yes. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I will decrease that.
I'm saying it's not a lot of them. I'm just finding more.
It doesn't. But that's my. It doesn't matter. My thing is that it changed music. What is the music landscape without Drake? What is the music landscape without The Weeknd? What are we looking at without this album that dropped an influence and made it not even influence, but made it okay to do this? Kanye made it okay to talk about your fucking feelings and try to sing when you can't sing. Like, what was that? Like, nobody was doing that shit.
K-Dot's taking it from a different perspective, and that's a fair perspective. I didn't even consider its influential impact. I just think it's a good album. I'm just going to be honest with you. I enjoy that album, and that's probably because I'm an emotional person. I love R&B. Like, that's what I have for you. But I think it's a good album. It's, okay, and we'll get into this later. Kanye has 2 albums for me that have no skips. 808s isn't one of them, but it's one of the ones where it's got 1 or 2. 1 or 2. I can't say the same for TLOP, and I think that sound is much better. I'd rather I'd rather hear a TLOP type of album than 808s, but he has about 3 or 4 skips on TLOP for me.
Yeah, see that the 808s thing is like I'm skipping a lot more of that album even today. But I also know that almost all the artists that it did influence are not people I listen to. I just know how important they are, even if I don't necessarily ingest it. So like I can't listen to a Drake project all the way through. I've never been able to. I can't. Like I physically can't do it. I love Drake's features on a lot of things. I can listen to a Drake single here and there. But listening to an entire Drake project's never been my thing. The Weeknd, Old Weeknd's my favorite Weeknd. Then I'm off of it. Like I get him, I get his influence. I'm not disrespecting it. It's just not something I'm listening to. And I think that's what 808s and Heartbreak does to me, is like acknowledging how something can be great, even if it's not for me, even if it's not for my ear, or it's not something that I want to listen to. I can understand I think the biggest thing was like hearing a lot of the new artists. Like when you hear a Tyler, the Creator, in that generation, like the younger crop than us, talking the interviews about like the artists or the albums that influenced them. Every single one of them had 808s and Heartbreak. And that's the only reason it's on this list. And to me, if we were talking about most influential, it would make a strong case for number one. It would make a very strong case for number one.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
moving on to 4.
Album ain't great.
Let's move on to 4 for everybody. 4 was 808s for me, but we kind of covered 808s.
Yeah, 4 was 808s for me too.
As far as it goes for me, and it wasn't on James' list. So let's skip that. Now go to 3.
Well, 4 for me was
3
late
was
registration.
I'm gonna save the late registration for a little later. So coming out of 808s and Heartbreak. So just to recap, number 5 for me was Life of Pablo. James, 5 for you was Life of Pablo. Life of Pablo just missed Keem's list. We talked about Life of Pablo and kind of what it means. And beyond that, 808s and Heartbreak, we know James did not even make his list, but that's number 4 for me. It was number 4 for me, number 4 for Keem. Now we're going to get into number 3, which me, Keem, had the same, and James is number 4, which was Late Registration. Now, Late Registration to me is an incredible album. It's an incredible album. Like, there's one that I put above it as far as if I'm looking at the 2 versions of Kanye, right? So I got version 1 and version 2 of Kanye. If I'm looking at version 1 of Kanye, when Late Registration comes out, this is what, 05? So this is album drops right before his Hurricane Katrina George Bush comment. This is before the Taylor Swift bit. This to me is like his lyricism. He raised the bar from College Dropout. Like that to me was like, all right, he took another step forward. Then after he took the other step forward, to me was the sampling. We started getting to more what the Kanye sound was as far as the sampling and what he was doing with the soul sampling.
Like Touch the Sky.
Dog, he starts doing some stuff with the sampling that is just incredible to me. And if you look at this, Diamonds, Drive Slow, Gold Digger, which to me was always just an upgrade over Slow Jams, is just he's elevating. Like you see, he's rising. And I feel like he's coming to a peak very, very soon. Like you could just tell when his album drops. I just went with my top 3 on the album, but trust me, there's more than those 3. Because I'm hard pressed when this album's over from starting from back to skip it.
I have so you remember when this album came out, right? And this is like around the time when I was still being driven to high school and shit. And you hear like music on the radio, which doesn't happen anymore because nobody listens to the radio for music. So when Diamonds first came out, it was just Kanye. Then they had the remix. He was like, "What's up with you and Jay, man? And y'all okay, man?" Yep. And I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, hold on. Like you said, I just grabbed my boots. I was like, "Yo, what is this?" And I'm like, "Oh." And then like if you look at the album now, Diamonds on it is the one featuring Jay-Z, and then the bonus track is the original. That's how great like that moment was, especially like you hear it and you're like, oh, they cool. He on out. What? And it's like you have moments like that, and it's like I can see why it's high on anybody's list.
Which is funny because they just had another moment like that.
Yeah, the Donda thing.
Sure.
I still listen to that snippet from Donda, and when that is going to get worn.
I haven't heard anything yet.
Hey, Devin, just a warning. I'm warning my girlfriend. When that Donda album comes out and there's the Jay-Z Kanye West song, I'm playing that all day.
I have not listened to it yet. I did not want any like spoilers in terms of like verses.
Oh my
like
God! It's that tears
no.
streaming down my face.
What's going to be frustrating to everybody that's listened to it already? It's probably going to change.
Which I'm fine with, but Life of Pablo a bit, right? But what I also remember about this album was that when his music videos became these landmark things.
Oh yeah, you remember Touch the Sky came out?
When his music videos ended up being something, because this is the tail end of like the MTV's no longer playing music videos bit, but right before YouTube becomes a thing. And it was like every once in a while there were a couple of music videos you were like, yo, I want to see this jump. And his videos were like, all right, I got to see what he comes up with next. The Diamonds one, the black and white, like you had to see what he was doing artistically with that shit. It was a Drive Slow, which I still waiting for a high quality cut of the version that I want to hear of the video on YouTube, because they never put out the version that I want on YouTube with the video. That's a great video. The lights and everything, the way that shit's working, it's just smooth. See, I still like rock Drive Slow.
The video is a big part for you, but like for me, it wasn't necessarily.
But it was a moment. Like that was the thing. It was a big fair. Deal. Yeah.
Like I remember first seeing you bringing it up. Huh?
He had Tracy Ellis Ross and Neil Long and Touch the Sky, man.
Yeah, but like the thing that I remember the most from Touch the Sky was like the fucking Evil Knievel thing.
Yeah.
And then like you see like Lupe and it's like, oh shit, Lupe on here. Yeah, but if you go back to like the beginning of the album, like it's like, all right, Bernie's back. And it's like, oh shit, he's back with Bernie. Shit's great. And then it goes into the song with Adam Levine. And you're like, all right. Then you Touch the Sky. You're like, this shit is nice. Then you go into Gold Digger. Like
I said, it's an upgrade. It's him using Jamie Foxx better than he did on Slow Jams.
Mm-hmm. And then it's like, all right, the skit, whatever, Drive Slow. When you hear that, you're like, okay, this is different. I fuck with this.
Used to stay.
Yeah, this. And then it's like when I heard like I'm on my way home with Common, it's like that sample. You just sing the shit. You don't even know where it's from, but you just sing it.
Yeah.
Then Crack Music. Like that beat was great. And the fact that the game was on it only for the hook.
Just say what it is. Graduations is a no skip album.
That's what I said.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We ain't got to go through all of them. Everybody, it's a no skip album.
No, this is late registration we're talking about.
I'm sorry, hang on. Yeah, sorry. We're talking about late registration. It's a no skip album. This is where we're now in the top 3. These are no skips. We're in no skip territory. This might even be, this song's not my favorite, but I ain't skipping it.
Yeah, and then he had his Dear Mama version on this, like with Hey Mama. And that was cool to see, just based on like of course, you know, like everything that's happened since, but just the fact that like that was on there to make you like to think about yours, you know? So yeah, I respect it. And then Late. That was the one that I came back to at the end, like, because like you're so full from like hearing all these songs, and then you get to the end and you're just like, all right, it's the end of the album. It's probably like, like, you know how like some people just put throwaways at the end just to fill out time and shit. But then you hear this song, and you're like, I like this too. And then I started being late for shit. And then I was like, all right, I can't listen to this anymore.
James is a post child to have hip hop negative.
I kind of disagree on late registration having those skips. It has 2 for me, and that's Addiction and Celebration. But those are the only 2 for me. And those are the 2 I'm gonna skip every time. I'm just saying, for me, I don't think that's the album that it's close to no skips, but it's not no skips. That's for me though.
I still don't skip them. Like, that's the thing, is like there are some albums where even the song might not be my favorite. I ain't skipping it, because to me it just feels like if I've gone this far, I'm just gonna see the project through. Like that sometimes I get to that point where I'm just like, All right, as long as I don't look at the track list and I'm like, oh, I got to get through 9 minutes of this shit. Like if it's 3 minutes, 4 minutes, I'm just like, okay, I can listen to it. We'll get through this shit.
Okay, you know what? You're right about Celebration.
I like Celebration. I understand why people skip it, but
I was thinking about Roses.
I love Roses. Okay, so
I love Roses. That's why I was like, you can't.
My favorite songs on the album, Roses and Bring Me Down.
Branded everything, but yeah, I love Roses.
All right. Anything else to add, Keem, on late registration?
Nothing on late registration. I think it's like I said, it's very close to having no skips. It's a great album. I love the sound. I agree with you in that it's a better version of Kanye from College Dropout. Here's my thing about Kanye. K-Dot says there are 2 versions of Kanye. I think there's a version of Kanye for each album. And I'll talk about that later when we finally get to the end. And that's kind of or at least Kanye does a great job of putting you where his mind is at that moment in time for each album. Like 808s, his mom passed, Heartbreak, all that stuff. It makes perfect sense. It's a time capsule for him. All of his albums are somewhat of a time capsule, and there's an evolution of Kanye, and you can see it within the albums. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But right now, I want to get into that top 2 that we have, which is Graduation. Starting with Graduation. So can you guys kind of tell me what went into your mind on why Graduation is number 2?
It is. So I look at Kanye. To me, Kanye is basically before and after the aftermath. So my 2 versions of Kanye are before and after the aftermath of 808s and Heartbreak. That to me is a defining line in the Kanye West career. Because I think that, and we'll talk about it more with number 1. So with the first version of Kanye, I think he reaches peak version 1 on Graduation. I think that this is where everything that you're seeing, that through line through College Dropout, this is when he reaches this is the peak of this version of this guy, in my opinion. When he dropped, he was the alternative option. Like it was the thugged out rap. It was and then you had this alt thing that kind of popped up, and he was the guy. Like as far as being the guy that was the alt guy, but not underground, the alt guy, but was still going to sell out his albums and be number 1 or number 2. Then the biggest thing to me is that he won the war between the alt guys and the thug thing when it came to the 50 Cent Graduation release thing, and he crushed his ass. Went close, he crushed him. Like.
Just a quick point. I don't think he gets enough credit for kind of the relevant 50 Cent's career as a single artist with that, because it was, for me, it was just like I was so tuned into that moment. It was huge on 106 in Park and everything, and I was rooting for Kanye. I went out, listened to Kanye, bought Kanye and everything. I bought 52, but I fucked with Kanye more. And like after that, you didn't really hear from 50 like that.
No. Because 50 talked all this shit, and it was the first time somebody shut his ass up, like point blank in public. You shut up. And Kanye did it. He didn't really have to say much. Like that was the thing, was like, as the guy who, while I always appreciated the more thugged out rap shit, if I was home and I had my headphones on, I was listening to Mos Def. I was listening to Talib Kweli. I was listening to the dudes. I was listening to Common. Like the amount of time that we talked about College Dropout, the amount of play that 2 Wards got for me. 2 Wards was like everything to me.
But now on Dave Chappelle too.
Yeah, that song was everything to me. And like when you had like he won this battle, but even outside of that, as far as influence goes, it's EDM heavy. When you talk about like Stronger, what he's motherfuckers pulling from Daft Punk. Yep. When you see what EDM and all these DJs going around the world making how many millions of dollars just doing these sets.
Where did EDM start?
EDM started a while. I mean, we can go into real history.
Started in Chicago, right?
No, but it was
Chicago.
To me, if you're looking
black
at
people started EDM.
Hold on. If you're looking at as far as the history of EDM, there's a lot into that as far as from a historic standpoint and what EDM itself means. I would say Chicago absolutely invented the blending of EDM and hip hop. And as far as what Kanye did with the blending of EDM and hip hop, and knowing that you could do this and put it on the song was going to be huge. Because you're talking about Graduation, like this is pre fucking dubstep becomes a thing. This is pre everybody's using their electronic and it's hitting the charts. To me, it was very influential. And then we're talking about the synth stuff. Future, Metro Boomin, all the synth shit that was on that album that everybody started saying. It's his most flush and full version of version 1 Kanye to me. Stronger, I still put up there. I know a lot has happened since then. I still find hard pressed to find a better all around put together song than Stronger, I think, that he's ever done. I just say, if I'm looking at it from a production standpoint, and if you ever watched a video like Timberland and all of them in the studio try to put the finishing touches on that shit, it's just that to me is high art. Big Brother, Homecoming, Good Morning, Flashing Lights. Rest your case.
All right, so let me add my parts to it. All right, so when we look at the top 2, right? We all have Graduation number 2 and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy number 1. For me, Graduation's number 2, and I put that so high just because of this came out when music was still like, music wasn't like gone in a week in people's attention span at that point in time. Like, people would listen to an album for a long time. And when this came out, I still remember like walking through the dorm rooms with my guys, just like playing fucking like different like songs and like talking about the lyrics, breaking the shit down, which, you know, as you get older, this shit doesn't happen anymore. The part of the reason why I have My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy number 1 is just based upon the fact that the time frame that it came out to.
Are we getting into number 1, or are we still sticking to number 2 right now?
I mean, I think I was the last one to talk about number 2 anyway.
Keem still has the. I don't think Keem's put his stuff in.
All right, cool. All right, so yeah, I mean, just every song had its own moment, which is like ridiculous when you think about it. Like, you can look at every song and remember like a massive moment, not only for you, but on TV, on the radio as well.
Yeah.
For each song, which is crazy.
Nah, it was big.
And you still listen to it. So it stood the test of time. It each had its own moment, and they all had importance.
So you talked about this earlier, James, but this is actually my favorite Kanye album. Like, Graduation is it for me because it's and I talked about this, there's a different version of Kanye for each album. College Dropout is, I'm gonna show you niggas that I can actually like rap to. Late Registration is, I'm blend down, like I'm here, like I'm gonna show you. College Dropout isn't a fluke. Graduation is, I have arrived as one of those artists who will be talked about for years to come. 808s, he's sad, and I think My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is, I think Power kind of signifies what his mindset was and who he was in that time. It was, I'm that nigga. No, I'm the best rapper alive right now. It's me and nobody else. And that's what I think is. But for Graduation, it was like the culmination of Late Registration, College Dropout. It's, I'm here to stay. I'm solidified. It's a no skips album for me. If you skip anything, it's maybe Drunk and Hot Girls, but I kind of love that. But that's just me. But for me, it's no skips. It's good from front to back. And it's a great, concise album. He started to get into those more concise albums after College Dropout, Late Registration. This is why probably most of these, the 3 albums that came after that are a little bit better than the first 2. Except for maybe Late Registration. It's just, they're more concise, and it's just better. But he got into his bag of, okay, not doing too much with skits, not giving you those two or three extra fillers. And I thought like he did that perfectly with Graduation. Mm-hmm. So we've all got My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy at number 1. And we all love it, I'm sure, for different reasons. We've talked about the time that it came out, which is definitely one of the reasons for me. It was that whole rollout leading up to it was perfect. So you guys kind of tell me why it's number 1 for you, near and dear to your heart, all that stuff.
Yeah, you go, James. You already started.
All right. So we talked about Graduation and how it came out at a time when people still sat with music before they moved on to the next thing. in my opinion. Like, do y'all disagree? Agree?
Yeah, I disagree with that, but I think it's more to do with the individual. I think societally, we've been doing more singles because you could buy a song. I think it went through this phase of like, there was throughout a lot of the 2000s, there was this era, the late 2000s was like the download ringtone songs, which was like you could pay 99 cents for the song. You weren't going to pay for the album. But now I think we've gone back because of streaming. It's too easy to get through an album now. Like you can get an album.
We're talking about different stuff.
Right.
Here's what I mean. In terms of J. Cole put out an album. It's a great ass album, right? Mm-hmm. People listened to it for like a week or 2 weeks. Next album came out. Just dropped.
So you mean just like, a lot of like releases?
A playlist. It's a playlist era. So it's like
I'm still listening to it, but that's a great point.
Yeah, but it's like a playlist era. So like people just pick and choose their favorite songs and then just like discard the rest of the music.
I guess it's weird because a lot of people that I talk with music on, I talk about music where we don't do that.
Yeah, but like generally speaking, this is
I can see what you're saying. Right?
So like for this album, like the time it came out, you had that album, you sat with the album and you went through the whole thing at that point in time. The reason why I put the other one like number one is because it came out like later in time when people would start to like pick and choose different songs and stuff. But each fucking song or like most of all the songs on that album were just great.
Yeah, I don't deny that. Like
it's like, once again, each song had its own moment. And it's like if you look back in time, you're like, oh shit, hey, you remember when this happened? It's like, yeah, that was on that album. You remember when this happened? That was on the same album. That's why it's number one for me.
Okay.
I like that.
So number one, once again, my list, not going off of favorites. I'm going off of what I think are the best. And to me, this is the creme de la creme. And this to me is the birth of the new Kanye. This is, and I told you guys I was going to bring Mos Def up because this is post Taylor Swift fallout. Obama calls you a jackass. You're kind of sitting low. And Mos Def goes over to Kanye's house and tells him, you need to leave the country. You need to go away for a while. And Kanye says, what do you mean? He's like, you need to let everything blow the fuck over. Go get in your own headspace. Go bring your crew with you. You tell us where you're at. We'll come out and visit. But you need to go the fuck away. He didn't quite leave the country. He went to Hawaii, but he locked himself down. And when you hear about the rap camps and stuff that were happening out of the studio, we're going to run down this list real quick. Raekwon, RZA, Pusha T, Rick Ross, Charlie Wilson, Big Sean, C.I. the Prince, Swizz Beatz, Nicki Minaj, T.I., Drake, Common, Jay-Z, John Legend, Fergie Rihanna, The Dream, Ryan Leslie, Elton John, MIA, Justin Vernon, Seal, Beyonce, Kid Cudi, Mos Def, Santiago, Alicia Keys, Ellie Jackson, Q-Tip, RZA, again, DJ Premier, Madlib, Static Selecta, and Pete Rock, along with Chris Rock, and apparently Dave Chappelle made an appearance.
You said say hi, the kid?
See, I'm sorry. Yeah, whatever. Fuck you. The bottom line.
I couldn't let that go.
Yeah, my bad. I'm reading off the list. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I was
fuck
like,
you.
You can't disrespect Sahai like that.
I'm disrespecting him. No, I'm checking. This is the fallout of 808s because 808s was not well received. 808s this is trash when it came out. Was what most people said.
But you expect so much more.
Because that was the thing, was like he had built up this thing. Then when he finally said, I'm going to go do something out of left field, something different, the majority of society said, no, we're not fucking with this. And then on top of not fucking with this, we ain't fucking with you. And look, name another black artist that could go basically pull the mic out of America's Sweetheart's hand and still drop an album that was universally acclaimed. It was that good. You couldn't disregard it, which ended up being the thing that lasted in version 2 Kanye, which everybody says pretty much, yeah, he's an asshole, but he's a great artist. That's kind of what it comes down to. Is it like, this to me this is it. This is everyone on their most creative level. This reminds me of like when they talk about the rap camps that were happening in the studio in Hawaii, this reminds me of like late 90s, early 2000s, what they were doing in Philly and New York, where like Questlove and D'Angelo and the Neo Soul Moon, when Erica would show up and Mos Def and Talib, Jill Scott, and everybody was in the room. This was almost an extension of that, but on this grander scale.
Cole doing it now with Dreamville.
Which is why you see people try to recreate that recipe, right? And like anytime that it happens, it ends up being something special. If we want to go, Keem, shout out to ATL, the Dungeon Family sort of movement. Like, it's that sort of, we're going to have this collective of just creative minds, like, pass that fucking weed around. Let's get in our fucking bag. And that to me is just, it's close to perfection. Like, I remember there were years that I would listen to this album and I thought it trailed off a little bit near the end. Like it used to go like really hard up until a certain point and it trailed off a little bit for me. I used to skip some of the songs, but I made a point today as I was driving around, I was listening to the album and I remember, dog, there's some fucking, then we're talking about the music videos. The Runaway music video thing is when he elevated to something that was like, why does Life of Pablo come out as name Life of Pablo? You're not comparing me to hip hop producers anymore. Compare me to the other artists. I want to hear my name with Basquiat. I want to hear my name with Picasso. This is what Kanye did. And to me, it's everything he puts out now going forward. I don't know if we'll ever reach that stage of my beautiful dark twisted fantasy. And because I'm excited to see what comes next, but it's just, to me, it was the culmination of everything. It was just it was the best of the best. And it was him doing something new. But it was him feeling very confident. It was the first time, like Kanye's always flirted with this confidence, but when you hear Power and you see the music video for Power, which is like also deep on another level from an artistic standpoint, he's like, you're not fucking with me. You're not fucking with me. I know what I'm capable of doing. You're not fucking with me anymore. And that to me is like, there's hardly any artists that get to do that. I think the closest as far as calling your shot and getting it done, I think Jay-Z and the Black Album. Nobody said Jay-Z was the greatest rapper of all time until he said it himself before the Black Album release. And I think the Black Album, while I do think it's an almost perfect album in my opinion, it suffers going forward because it wasn't his last album. But the bravado that Jay-Z had stuck with it. And I think Kanye on the same level, but Kanye didn't shoot for what Jay-Z was saying. Kanye's saying, fuck rap. I'm bigger than that. I'm bigger than everything. You're going to put me in the atmosphere. I'm the greatest artist you've ever seen. And trust me, he's
something like that too.
Which had a lot of you niggas believe in it. But the aspect of it, Kanye to me was this is the moment where it was like everything should have gone wrong. Everything should have gone wrong. This shouldn't have worked. And I think everyone was waiting for it to fail. And not only did it not fail, he created his greatest piece of art. That to me is, I don't know of any, that's calling your shot and letting everybody know I'm the shit the entire time you're doing it.
Organized chaos.
I'm just gonna get into the music, man. And it's a 13-song album, but the album is actually like an hour and 10 minutes long. So it's one of
hour and 8 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like one of longer albums, but it doesn't feel long. It doesn't feel long at all.
It's like a Marvel movie.
8 minutes, and the music is fucking great. And to bet, I just want to make this point. He released, I believe, 6 or 7 of these songs before the album came out. It's only 13 songs. Now, because I remember getting it I remember buying it. I was like, what the fuck? I've heard most of these. But then at the same time, I was like, but this shit is fire. So it didn't fucking matter because the music is that fucking good. I'm not going to do all of them. Power, classic. All of the Lights, classic. Devil in a New Dress, my nigga. Rick Ross
on a soul sample, undefeated.
God bless the man I put this ice over, classic. Runaway, classic. Fam, that's 5 out of 13. 5 out of 13. It's just, and those are just songs. I could keep going.
I like
those are probably 4 or 5 of my favorite. I'm with you. 4 or 5 of my favorite off of the album. It's just a great sounding album, and it's the perfect culmination of it's expertly produced, and the lyrics actually mean something. I feel them. They're impactful. It's an impactful album. It's not a wasteful album. It's not empty calories. The production is there. The songs are there. The features are there, and they're expertly placed. He crafted this album. It's like watching fucking Tom Brady pick apart the fucking Falcons in the Super Bowl. It's like 28-3. Let me show you who the fuck I am.
Surgical.
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. It's like fucking Larry Bird when he used to call a shot and fucking people got mad at him. Dr. J wanted to fight him because he kept telling them where I'm gonna go. Hey, left fade away, left side shot, bam, it's over. There's nothing you can do. It was his peak. It was his peak. He peaked, and it's a perfect album for me.
The thing I want to add one thing to it, because I was looking at my notes because I wrote notes for all of them. And when you said production, I said the most luscious production he's ever done with bars. Because that to me is like, there was expert craftsmanship in the album itself. There's something that Kanye does that I don't think people give enough credit to. And I think it's the reason I appreciate Tyler, the Creator, because I think Tyler's the closest to Kanye when it comes to production in this lane. Kanye realizes that you can take voice samples and turn them into instruments. And there are no wasted anything in his production. Like, he takes something, when you hear Power and you hear the 21st century schizoid man, and he takes two chops of a melody with that, and takes that sample, distorts it, changes it up, reverses it in some areas, and makes it just an instrument like anything else. That to me was when I say version 2 Kanye, is that after that is when he started going heavy in that bag. This is why I love a lot of what he does with like Life of Pablo, where it almost starts sounding gospel. He's using vocals as the layers in his production, which is not something you usually do. You take a sample of like a song, you take the instruments, you might take a sample or a hook of something somebody's doing. You don't take it and then try to figure out what notes the person's singing to actually have it within the beat of the fucking song. He does that better than anybody has. And I love that Tyler's on that level too, because you listen to those Tyler production, ever since Flower Boy, he's really started to get in that bag. There's not a lot of people that have that ear, man. It's the dude is like Pastor T.L. Barrett out of Chicago. Like there's some gospel sort of shit happening with this dude where he becomes a composer. He's not just he's a composer.
I have a question. Somewhat out of left field. Who would you say is a better producer, Kanye or Dr. Dre?
Kanye.
Kanye.
Okay.
I had to think about it though.
I think it's Kanye. I think it's Kanye. Here's the thing: by saying that does not denigrate Dr. Dre, not one iota.
Of course.
But I go to. When I look at My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, the reason I read that roster of artists, right? Mm-hmm. Each one of those people, most of them, drop any album and it's high art. It's not just an album. These are some of the most talented people that exist. He was able to use each one of them to the best of his abilities on his album. Like to me, my favorite Kanye songs is when he's not featured as much. My favorite Kanye song of all time is Ultralight Beam. He's barely on it. And my thing is that he's a better composer and producer than I would be a rapper, in my opinion. But the thing is that on My Beautiful Dark Twisted, you're never going to see a roster artist like that. But you're also not going to see that he was also unselfish in a way production-wise. He's in the studio with Primo, Q-Tip, and RZA asking for input. What should I do with this? Yo, this don't sound 100%. What do you guys think I should do on this? And I just think the way that Kanye kind of carries himself right now, there's still people fucking with him. I doubt he'll ever get a roster of this magnitude again.
I like your Tyler point, and I'll add a point to it. Because I didn't used to be that big of a Tyler fan, to be honest. From his early stuff, was never a big fan, but his last 3 albums been great. So I do think he's on that Kanye trajectory. But I'll say this: Kanye's ability, his legendariness as a producer is what separates him in ability from a guy like a J. Cole. And I love J. Cole. He's one of my favorite artists. He also produces his own shit, but he's not that great of a producer, to be honest. He's not. The floor for J. Cole is lower because if the shit don't sound good, nobody gonna listen to the shit. Like it's like well, we can do without it. It's okay. But with Kanye, the shit is always gonna sound good. So the floor is here for him, and the ceiling is even bigger. The shit is always gonna sound good, long as I got somebody in here writing with me, and I'm not on some nut shit. Might be a classic album.
And that's my final point on that in my beautiful dark twisted fantasy. My favorite producer of all time. I'm not saying he's the greatest, even though I can make a case that he is. My favorite producer of all time is DJ Premier. Not one DJ Premier beat made of the album. Kanye threw all of them out. And Primo usually would be up in arms about something like that. He said he understood. That's all I need to hear.
I mean, shit, just listen to the
album. Okay, so I think that wraps up our top 5. But before we go, I do want to ask you guys a question. Just one thing, and that is, how many classic albums does Kanye have?
To be honest, I would go with 4.
I agree. Don't tell me you're 4 yet. I want to hear what K-Dot says. I'll give my answer, and then you name yours, and I'll name.
Okay.
3. I think that classic compared to influential other things can be different. I think certified classic, out the gate classics, 3. I'm not going with classics that like we're looking back on 10 years later and can recertify.
Well,
he's got 3 classics. Right now, like I could say basically his entire solo catalog except for Yeezus, in my opinion. But if I'm going out, like if I'm really trying to be
say Ye is the classic.
No, I wouldn't.
You would not.
Yeah, so like just give an honest answer. Like,
no, my honest answer, really just going off the inkling of what it is you said off the bat, I'm going with 3.
Okay.
4 for me. James, what are your 4?
My top 4 of the list. My beautiful dark twisted fantasy, graduation, college dropout, and late registration.
Okay.
To me, those are the ones that you like. You go back to, and you like when you listen to it, you remember where you were when you first heard it, and it stood the test of time, and it's going to continue to stand the test of time. My kids are going to hear this album.
I feel you. Hey,
it's my top 3, and I took that into consideration while I was making my list. My top 3 end up making the cut. I don't take 808s and Heartbreak because I think it was way too pan when it first started out. I think it's defining culturally. I think it's extremely influential, extremely important. Like I said, it'd probably be number 1 on that list for those reasons. But I can't look through it and say he's got certified bangers. I can listen to what's happening with the album and say, oh, wow, this is where this, and this came from. It's the way I feel about the movie Citizen Kane. I don't like that movie. But I can acknowledge how influential that fucking movie is. Is The Godfather better than Goodfellas? Yeah, I'll still watch Goodfellas.
And then Scorsese went and made Goodfellas like 3 more times, but we're not going to talk about that. So my it's also my top 4 is my 4 classics. And I just think, again, I've already talked about first 2 no skips. As far as the first 2 albums that I ranked, and then 3 and 4 are close to no skips for me. Thoroughly enjoy those albums. I think they're classics. With 808s, I agree with Kate. It wasn't like loved when it first came out, but it's one of those albums that people started to love, as time passed. Like I remember in college, like just it came up as a topic on Twitter. Like people were like, oh no, like man, Kanye really put out another, like Kanye's first 4 albums are all classics. Like I don't agree that College Dropout is a classic like that for me. But if you said it was, it's okay. There's too much filler on there for me. And I'm not even talking about the skits. But there are like 2 or 3 songs where I don't like them at all. But anyway, so that's how I feel. And
it has to be a classic just because Brittany Renner came from it, man. I'm just saying.
All right, with that, let's end this.
And with that, there you have it.
Wait.
Well, you got to sign off. This is your show now. Is that it?
Y'all remember what Colin Kaepernick said about Brittany Renner?
No, would you stop? Were you a Brittany Renner historian? What the fuck
That
is
shit
wrong
was
with you?
funny. You don't know what
I
he
know
said?
she tried to be with him.
No, she was. But he made her book her own flight.
He knew what PJ Washington didn't know.
All right, and with that, we are done with
And he was
Unequal
like,
Opinions.
"Hey, you gotta
Hopefully,
book your own
God
flight.
damn it. All
Come
right,
here."
nope, we're doing this. All right, so those two guys are muted. Thank you for watching Unequal Opinions. This will be the last time that you're going to hear me outro it. Keem will get his shit together and do it next time instead of having a fucking full-blown Brittany Renner outro. So, peace, people, and we'll be back with more Unequal Opinions soon.